I think it's take two. I think the other one was out of focus, but here we go again. Snake check, and I'm standing in the same spot that I did about 5 months ago in April of 2021. It is behind the clouds, but it's still bright. Okay. And I can't get my hair. It's bent in the wrong direction. So, separate from the bent hair, the squinting eyes, and the wind noise, I just wanted to check in. It's been a really long time, and I keep trying to figure out what I want to say. You can kind of see it from the title. This is where Survival Road ends. And it is now the end of August in 2021, and I have officially lived 4 seasons in the horse trailer off-grid without electricity and water to plug into and to get on my property. I'm not going to lie, it has kicked my butt. But when I stood in the same place, in the same outfit 5 months ago, I was really in a bad place. And I told you that was the end of my conversation on survival, that Survival Road for me had ended. And that I just, my big takeaway from winter was, if the grid goes down, I don't survive. And that has been reinforced this summer. If the grid goes down 100%, I don't survive. But what I wanted to bring up and shift towards is, as you see, this t-shirt says Everlast. And if you know me, you know I'm really into boxing. I used to be. I could never make a career of it, but my spirit is the spirit of a fighter. And so when I talk about this idea of resilience, I think Everlast reflects that. And, a lot has changed. As I told you, I'm in a period of mourning for America. We're falling apart. We're on the bridge or the brink of being into a full-blown crucible event. Right now, we're in the crucible, but it is so on, and it's only going to get worse, and we don't survive it. But I like the idea of how to have resilience through it. So I want to talk a little bit about this idea of what the desert and off-grid has taught me in these 11 years or 10 years I've been living like this, in this last year off-grid, about lessons of resilience. But first, while it was still cool in April, it is now super hot. So I'm getting out of the sun because the sweatshirt, well, I wanted to make a point, it's just too much. So you may have noticed that things have changed a little bit in here. I'm in the process of figuring out how to pack up so I can move, but it's also time to make that switch from summer to winter. And anybody who has lived in these kinds of situations knows that there are a lot of things that you have to do to shift from your it's too hot, I can't take it, to it's too cold, oh my God. And so this isn't a weather video. This is a resilience video. This is a shifting from the concepts of survival into resiliency. And I had a real aha the other day, and I wanted to share it because I think it's really pivotal. And part of what I've been doing when I made the video about being 10 years online and in the tiny trailer is I went back, and I was looking at all my old stuff. And in addition to that, I was really looking at myself. And, my thing, you've seen me over the years, is I really like first responders. I like the fighters. I like the people who run towards danger. Because that's who I am. And where I've been in this massive struggle these last few years is I don't have fight in me anymore. I can't go to the front lines and fight. And for anybody who knows that you've had, like if you're a boxer, right, and you can't box anymore, you spend quite a bit of time thrashing around trying to rediscover how to be in this world. So I had two kind of epiphanies around that. Three. One is that your best strategy for survival and resilience is to really honor your primary stress response. And I haven't been doing that. I have been trying to be what I'm not, to stand still, to be calm, those kinds of things. 2 is that the fight response is a very up and down process, and that stresses people out. And people who, because when I was looking at that video from April, I'm like, oh, you know, I'm so defeated. And I have this rhythm that stresses people out. And, you know, they want to make you bipolar. They want to make you having a personality disorder. They want to make you hormonal. But what I was really kind of clicked for me is that people who engage in the fight response, you have big adrenaline rushes and then you have big crashes, and that's what that looks like. And if you don't rest and recharge, then you don't have the energy to re-engage. The flies are also kicking my ass this year. I cannot keep them out the way I had mastered in the white trailer. So that's a stressor. My fight response is to kill them. And I don't even just put the tape up like I want to kill them. And so I am a fighter. Everything about me is wired for the fight response. And as I was having this conversation about, well, I can't go out into the world and fight anymore because all my fighting years have kicked my butt. Just like this whole off-grid thing has completely creamed me. You know, I've been in the process this summer of trying to recover a little bit. It occurred to me that that is the fight response to stress is up and down, up and down, up and down. And so we have to recover and recharge and rest. And for people like me who are fighters, we see that as a negative. In the same way, people who are flight, who run away, your best survival mechanism is also your best way to be resilient, is to honor that you should not be up on the front lines, that your work is to be in the background, providing comfort and foundation and service and whatever you can do to be part of this crucible moment that we are all in, whether we want to or not. And the third response is the freeze response. And I've talked about these things before, but I want to add a different dimension to them. And the freeze response is that deer in the headlights, you know. In fact, we just saw a little horny toad, you know, one of those fat round lizards, and I wish I'd had my camera. Its safety mechanism, its survival mechanism is to freeze. Now, it chose to freeze out in the open. Luckily, I saw it and I didn't step on it. And then I wondered if I touched it, if it would run away, and it didn't. It just stood there in its freeze response. And that's what it does to survive. And its best understanding of resilience is to honor that freeze response. And what's really interesting about trauma is that the freeze response is what causes a lot of the PTSD, because the trauma, the belief system is that the trauma gets locked in your cells, and unless you honor that and discharge it, then it sticks with you and you keep getting triggered and stuck. And so I think it's this, stop trying to make everybody, you know, one thing and medicating and doing all these things to put you on a flat line. And does that sound familiar? And to honor our individual stress response is our best defense and offense for survival in this crucible, but also what we need to do to recharge and re-engage in it. And then if it ever gets over and we're still here, how we heal and recover and restore from the crucible. You know, everybody's got an opinion about what's going on. Everybody's got a different place they're comfortable with. And that really is their stress response through their filter and their belief system. And so I'm finding where I want to go with all this. I hope you'll find where you want to go with all this. You know, my 4 seasons of off-grid have taught me that when I don't honor my stress response, I get even more out of whack. If I don't allow myself my recovery periods, even though my mind is like, move, 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 and my body's like, talk to the hand, pushing past what I can do, whoops, trying to get my hair off my neck. I like my hair growing out. I don't like it on my neck. By not honoring it and understanding it, I'm really fighting my own need and process for resilience, because, you know, I've come to the understanding that I am not going to survive a grid down situation. But I can be resilient through the process of, and the way that I do that is to honor that I am a fight response person. And so the other thing that popped into my head this morning was, because the big thing, you know, I think we're all seeing right now is the taking out of our immune systems. And what is the immune system? The immune system is your internal fight response to stress, to an invader, to danger. Your immune system is built to fight against danger. And when we don't honor that, it will take us out, which is what's happening. You know, with simple things like not being in the sun and not talking to each other and not doing all these basic things that are very healing and rest and recharge and soothing and calming to our nervous system, which is really what our stress response is. So I know the headline to this was 4 seasons of off-grid just kicked my rear end. And that really is the stress response, because being in an environment that I can't control, you know, that's been the lesson of the desert. It's been the lesson of the wilderness, is that nature doesn't care. We're seeing that in the fires. We're seeing that in the flood. You know, civilization, being on grid, is this idea that we are capable of controlling our environment and staying safe. No grid, because off-grid really is on-grid. It's just you go buy it and bring it home. That's the only difference. No grid is you are no longer able to create a controlled environment in which you're safe all the time. If you don't learn to work with your environment, you won't survive. And, you know, in the end, nobody does. And so when we relax that we're not going to live through this, how do I become resilient within it? And I thought, you know, that's really been the lessons from these last 10 years, and then especially this last year, because I was so defeated emotionally after this summer, after this winter, about how hard it was and how poorly I did with it physically and emotionally. And then the summer, you know, having a repeat, only the opposite, instead of being freezing cold, of just being so hot, and how out of control I was. Because, you know, my experiment this summer was to really see what a no-grid situation would be. Without refrigeration, you know, without ice. I threw away so much food. I lost so much food. My health was just a mess because I was sweating so much. You know, it took me a while to remember to do all the things, and then it's really hard to do all the things, because to get the minerals and enough water and salt, you know, my blood pressure was in the toilet, and if it got too low, I was just exhausted and I couldn't move. And I finally remembered, go get the blood pressure cuff. And once I started to measure, you know, my blood pressure on a regular basis, then I could see when I was getting too dehydrated, because I was never, you know, feeling not thirsty. And there was just a lot to this summer. It's the same thing as there was this winter. And I've been, you know, conflicted. Do we talk about it with you? Should I share it? And I don't want to talk about survival anymore, but I do want to talk about resilience. And I'm going to put one caveat here at the end. Because I'm recognizing that I can no longer go out and be part of the fight. The second question I've been asking myself is, what would the feminine response to the fight stress response be? Because I've been so engaged in a masculine response to fight stress. And that really is, you know, to be up in people's face, is to be on the front lines. It's really to be out and in it, right? To be confrontational, to engage in conflict. And so, you know, my question is, what is the feminine response, or the reaction, or a way of being within the fight response? Because I need to honor my primary stress response. That's how my nervous system is wired. And that was sort of the aha with the immune system, is that there's nothing more important than our health, because our health, the battle that we're in right now, is in our bodies, not even outside. It's our immune system, and health is, you know, who we are in this world, how we manage it within our home, within our relationships, how we heal. And health is really a foundational process. Western medicine thinks of it as fixing things, but health is foundational. If you, that's what my Primal Human Training was all about. If you understand the design of the blueprint of your body, of the physiology of your mind and body, emotions and spirit, we can heal from almost anything. But everything that's being pushed at us right now, fear, lies, separation, being out, you know, staying inside, isolating. I heard someone calling it staying in your bubble, not talking to each other, not touching each other. All of that is destruction of our health and of our immune system. And home and hearth are really the domain of the feminine. And that's sort of what, you know, as I'm coming back to life a little bit and it's cooling down, you know, I'm like, I want to focus on my health and my home. I'm calling it my haven and my hearth, my wilderness haven, because this is what I have to live in right now. It's not the best and the most ideal for me in the long run, but this is what I have. And I want it to support me foundationally so I can build resilience by working with my primary stress response. So my invitation to you is to really think about what is your primary stress response when you know, if you're over 10, you know what it is, right? When you're faced with danger or fear, do you run towards it? Do you run away from it? Or do you just shut down? That's the freeze response. Do we fight, flight, or freeze? And freeze is the one that's most misunderstood and rarely talked about. We usually just talk about fight or flight. But freeze is also the most damaging if you don't understand it. If your primary is fight and you fight back, you have much less PTSD than if you freeze up and don't honor that. And so this is all stuff I've talked about before, but I just, you know, have made the decision that after 4 seasons of off-grid, you know, the two big ahas is, one, there's no such thing as off-grid. It's either on-grid or no-grid. I know that I don't survive no-grid, that it kicked my butt. But now that I've had a little time to kind of rest and recharge a tiny bit from this summer's debacle, that new ideas are popping into my head about how I could manage it in a better way to create a higher degree of resilience. And so I think it might be worth passing some of those ideas along. So we're not going back on survival road, but we are going to talk about the stress response and resilience from the feminine perspective of how you really build your health and your home, and how that's going to be supportive of everybody else in their stress response. You know, the masculine energy is push out, the feminine domain is within. And I've talked about, you know, I'm noticing that women, even the masculine women I know, are starting to pull back in and wanting to be more about home and health and what they can, tiny world. And I'm having that same experience. And so that's today's video. So I hope that you got something from it. You know, what is your primary response to stress? And will you, if you understand it, you can honor it for both survival and resilience. That we're all unique in this process. There's no right or wrong. There's no right way to do it, no wrong way to do it. There's just what we need. And how much are you going to commit to that process? Not just for yourself, but for all of us. Because we are in the crucible. I wanted to talk about after the crucible, but that's just not going to happen. We are in it. I want to focus on how to be resilient through it, and then once it calms down a little bit, or if it does and we're still here, then we can talk about healing from it. I wish I could do the end, but right now we are in it. So with that, my friends, I hope you're having a good day. I'm so glad you're here. I can't wait to take this sweatshirt off, and I will see you next time.